I think we collectively just heard AntiDietPilot's brain explode, because how is that possible? What in the toxic femininity? Someone please save me. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. My name is Sam. If you're a returning viewer, welcome back. I am so happy to have you here again with me this week. If you are new here and this is the first time you are seeing my face, welcome. I make weekly videos dissecting internet nonsense, so if you're into that type of thing or you like today's video, I hope that you'll consider liking and subscribing. It really helps out the channel and make sure that you never miss another upload from me. Have y'all ever had one of these moments where you're just sitting on your couch, mindlessly scrolling through social media, trying to just distract yourself or fulfill some boring time in your life, right? Just scrolling. And then suddenly someone pops into your brain, be it like an old friend, an old foe, just someone you haven't heard from in a while, and you're like, man, what are they up to? I should look them up. We've all done this, right? Or is this just a me thing? Either way, this week I got that random urge to look someone up that we haven't talked about here on the channel for about 9 or so months. My algorithm just wasn't pushing them to me anymore. And for me, if you're out of sight, you're out of mind until this moment. The TikToker in question that I needed to look up, I needed to know what this person was up to, was none other than AntiDietPilot, previously known as Realistic Recovery. If you don't know who Realistic Recovery or AntiDietPilot is, congratulations. We did a video on the channel, like I said, about 9 or so months ago, where we talked about this health at every size thinfluencer and how she kind of assumed that her experiences were universal to everyone, which was just fascinating. But also her really abhorrent behavior where she was just openly admitting to committing credit card fraud on her TikTok. I needed to know if she was still up to her same antics or if she had changed her tune, so I figured, why not check in on her content here with you guys on the channel? Let's take a look at her stuff together. This was the first TikTok upon my quick scroll of her content that caught my attention because of the quotations around addicted to food. It's as if she's implying that it's not possible to be addicted to food, and there are 2 of these videos back to back. She expands more on what she means in the second one, so let's look at that.
Diet culture has really effed up people's mentality of what a balanced, healthy diet is. What a lot of people think balance is they think a forced balance where you eat 80% of X and 20% of Y. That's not balance. Your body is designed to tell you when it needs things, what types of things it needs, how much of it needs. And what's happened is a lot of people have lost those signals because they've been forcing themselves into a diet culture pattern of what is healthy, what is the right way of eating. Beyond the type of food that you should be eating, diet culture even tells you when the balance should occur. It should be balanced day to day. It should be balanced week to week. Everyone's body is different and not all bodies are going to operate on that same clock.
For anyone who's unfamiliar with AntiDietPilot, she has a history with restrictive behaviors when it comes to food. And that is her bias, is that restrictive sort of past that she has had. And she is making her content with her bias focused solely on her experiences, which she tends to think are pretty universal, right? We talked about that in that last video that we did. But the reason that this really bothered me is that we see her consistently claiming that she wants to support fat people. She wants to support these body positivity, fat acceptance, fat liberation, body neutrality movements. But then she will make content where she immediately negates the actual experiences of fat people. In this second TikTok, she is so confidently and so matter-of-factly saying that diet culture is the reason that people have such an effed up mentality when it comes to food and eating and balance in a diet. And we see this time and time and time again within this movement, right? We will see these fat activists, these thinfluencers who claim to be health at every size. They will remind you over and over and over again that the diet industry is $1 billion industry that doesn't care about you, and diet culture this and diet culture that. But there is always, always, always zero acknowledgement of the food industry and ultra-processed foods and fast foods and hyper-palatable foods that are also just truly effing up people's relationship with food. Because these are things that actually do also mess with people's bodies and their body's ability to do exactly what she's saying and tell them when they need something. Because of these hyper-palatable foods, food addiction is real. And just like other addictions, it has to do with the reward center in the brain, right? Except for instead of getting a hit of a drug or some other illicit substance or alcohol, it's getting that reward from food, specifically hyper palatable or ultra processed food. These foods are manufactured to have just the right amount of salt, sugar, and fat to hit that nerve receptor and for it to send out those hits of dopamine, which then can lead people into addictive behaviors and tendencies. Her putting quotations on addiction to food and implying that somehow that is not real is actually extremely harmful to the fat women who are most likely following her content. It's so interesting to me that someone whose channel TikTok account started out as Realistic Recovery is failing to recognize that there are other EDs that are not restrictive in nature and that the content that she is putting out is actually really harmful to those people, specifically fat people. And for her to have built her platform off of fat acceptance and body positivity and fat liberation talking points, that means that those are the women who are most likely following her and who are being actively harmed by this content and these talking points. Whether she knows it or acknowledges it or not, her content is leading people down a very destructive path. Because if you watch her content, she lives an overwhelmingly healthy lifestyle. And I mean that in the most sincere way possible. She works out for a living, right? She's a coach. Previously at Orange Theory, I'm not sure where she's doing that now because she has relocated from Seattle to Chicago. But she works out for a living. In most of her TikToks, she is walking through the city, right? Walking to work, walking to get her food, biking to these places. She rarely posts videos of herself on public transportation or in a car or anything like that. This is not everyone's experience, and it is especially not the experience of most fat people. I've shared it before, but I live in a city that is not walkable. It's a city that's built like a suburb. Everything is massive. There's these gigantic intersections. We've got like 3 and 4 lane roads that just run through the middle of town. Ain't no way I'm walking across that. You are not walking to get your food. You cannot walk to get to the grocery stores. Those things are completely inaccessible unless you have a car or you use public transportation to get there. When I started my journey, because of this sort of lifestyle, I have said it, I got that Fitbit and I started tracking, like, how many steps am I actually getting in a day? Am I truly as active as I think I am, right? Because I am doing some walking, right? I'm walking around the grocery store. I walk to my car. I'm walking around while I'm at work every once in a while. I work a desk job. And what I found was that I was only walking about 1,400 steps a day. Just enough to walk around my house to get ready in the morning, to walk from where I was to my car, drive myself to work, walk from my car to my office, and then back to my car, and then back to my house at night. 1,400 steps. That is a staggering amount of inactivity compared to someone who is walking around all day because they live in a place that is actually walkable. And I don't know if it's just because she's young and she just doesn't have the experience of other people, or she just doesn't care about the experience of other people, but like, your experience, AntiDietPilot, is not universal, especially to fat people, and especially to the fat people who follow your content. Let's take a look at another one of her videos.
When I say food is fuel, this is what I'm talking about right here, because I just had this epiphany. My brain is functioning right now. Why did we think intentionally malnourishing ourselves would somehow make us healthier? That if we just like didn't eat a lot of food and we were hungry all the time, or constantly thinking about food 24/7 and like having this mental anguish every single day, that we would be healthier and happier? When you actually sit down and critically think about the messages of diet culture, they make no sense.
I feel bad for laughing because she genuinely, I think, feels like she's done something here, but like, what is this video? Of course, diet culture messaging doesn't make sense if you're already in a thin or average or straight-sized body. Like, of course malnourishment would happen because you're literally not eating to try to lose more weight from a body that's already functioning properly. Malnourishment is really the only result of that. If you're not eating, or if you're eating very little, there's no way for you to get your vitamins and macro and micronutrients, right? That makes sense. But it made me laugh that she was like, I'm having an epiphany. I've put in all this critical thought. Like, if she had just put in a little bit more critical thought, she would have figured out that it is absolutely possible for fat people to be malnourished, despite the fact that they are not restricting food or starving themselves. I think we collectively just heard AntiDietPilot's brain explode, because how is that possible? Well, it's those hyperpalatable foods we were just talking about. These things that are ultra processed and meant to taste good and mess with our brain receptors, right? Those foods are taken to a lab or a processing plant, right? They are dried, smashed, squeezed, powdered, filled with preservatives so that they can live on a shelf. Like, all of these things happen to this food, and then I heard once in a documentary that they just spray vitamins back on them so they can say that there's vitamins. And that has always stuck with me as like a funny image. So they spray vitamins back on them, and then they put them on the shelves at the grocery store. It's been argued that ultra-processed and hyperpalatable foods aren't actually food. There are a lot of scientific papers that actually call them foodstuffs, because by the time they come out of this whole process, there's really nothing left, and it's so far removed from its whole food counterpart that it can't be viewed in that same way with those same vitamins, minerals, macro, and micronutrients. It's completely altered. So fat people whose diet mostly relies on these types of food can also be malnourished. And while it might not be beneficial to her to follow diet culture, there might be components of diet culture that are helpful to people who are overweight or suffering with obesity. And those things could be focusing on eating only whole foods to sort of break that pattern of eating the hyperpalatable food. It could be focused on counting calories so that they can see, oh my gosh, I'm eating something that's really high in calories but really low in fiber or protein. They can focus on macro or micronutrients to see what they're actually getting out of their food I know I had to do that when I was anemic and I needed to know how much iron I was taking in. There are so many things that come from diet culture that can actually be helpful to the people who need it. Just because AntiDietPilot has that experience and doesn't need those tools does not mean that there aren't people out there who do need some of those tools so that they can relearn how to eat and relearn their relationship with food after years and years and years of relying on ultra-processed or fast food for their meals. It's not that easy for everyone, and I wish that she would stop implying that it is, because again, that's really harmful to your own audience. Okay, now we're gonna get into what I view as some of her most problematic content.
If there's one thing my skinny ass friends have taught me about body size, it is that it is not determined by how much food you eat and how much you work out. Because why are my tiniest friends the ones who eat like shit and don't work out? Because according to diet culture logic, they should be fat. What it shows is that there is more to body size than just thermodynamics. That's why dieting is stupid, in my opinion.
I cannot with this reasoning. It makes me absolutely insane, and we hear this over and over and over again, whether it's from AntiDietPilot or Sammy at Find Food Freedom or our fat activist and fat liberation TikTok friends. It is absolutely just asinine to me. So let's dig into this for a minute. And before I get too far in, I do want to note that I am going to try to talk about this as sensitively as I can because of AntiDietPilot's past with restrictive behaviors. I have always said and will always choose to not focus on someone's body or their looks, but let me just get to the point here. Since she stopped restricting food and started eating more, she has gained weight. So eating more food increased her body size. I don't know how else to say that. I don't know if that comes across as mean or insensitive, but the truth of the matter is she stopped restricting, started eating, and gained weight, right? That was the goal of recovery for her. The goal of recovery for other people may not be the same. For someone who binges without any restrictive or purging behavior, the goal might be to reduce that intake of food, therefore making your body size smaller. I don't understand the disconnect here. Literally, we've watched her content where she's stopped restricted, started eating, and gained weight. How are we still claiming that food has nothing to do with weight gain? And then there is the comparison to the thin person who eats like trash and doesn't exercise, right? Another trope that we hear over and over and over again in this movement. So let's address it. I have not seen anyone out there advocating for thinness alone. I think that that is one thing that body positivity, body neutrality, this movement has achieved. No one is really just striving for thinness anymore. There is a realization that being thin doesn't mean you're healthy. But that doesn't mean she's not missing a few critical pieces here. As we've already mentioned, people who are in thin or average or straight-sized bodies, whatever you'd like to call it, they tend to have more activity built into their lifestyle already. So whether that's walking or biking or just moving in an active job, it's already just naturally built in for them. And even if they do choose to eat McDonald's or some other like garbage or trash food, right? Which is funny to me because bad food like isn't a thing for her. That aside, how much of it are they actually eating in comparison to someone who is overweight or obese? It's a weird thing that we tend to do where we see our friends eating at a gathering or a party or something like that, and we just assume, man, life is really unfair. Why are we eating the same or doing the same job and I'm fat and they're not? When the piece that we're missing is yes, we've seen our friend at a party or a gathering or an outing and they've eaten the same as us in that moment. But what we don't necessarily take into account is maybe they were busy at work and they didn't eat all day. So the 2,400 calories we just watched them consume in pizza and beer is all they've had for the entirety of their day. Where we ate 500 calories at breakfast, maybe 1,400 calories at lunch, and have now also consumed 2,400 calories worth of pizza and beer. Our total day is very different than their total day, but we didn't know that because we've only seen a snippet and then made an assumption that our days were exactly the same and somehow they're thin and we are not. And then there's the fact that, as I mentioned, thin or average or straight-sized people tend to have a little bit more activity built into their lifestyle. So let's say that AntiDietPilot and I are friends and we're both going to this party. She has woken up, gone to work where she's led 3 or 4 workout classes. She's walked home to change. She's now walking to the party venue. I have gotten into my car, driven to the train station, hopped on the train to get me to the nearest stop, and now I'm only walking about 1 block to get to the party. There's a difference in activity level and calorie burn there, right? And that's just a natural part of her day, and I just went through the natural movements of my day. It has nothing to do with genetics and everything to do with how much movement I got versus how much movement she got. And then, as I said, if she ate less calories throughout the day and I ate more calories throughout the day, we are going to have different results in different bodies. It just absolutely blows my mind that this is something that is so hard for people to grasp. I don't know if we just enjoy the cognitive dissonance of that, like if we just need that to protect ourselves from the self-awareness that will help us change, or if we just really, truly don't understand that people are very different in their lifestyles and the things that they do, right? Genetics might play a small part, but so does that lifestyle that's built in, and so does that activity level, right? Everything and everyone is different. And finally, because I'm feeling some type of way today and we're already talking about AntiDietPilot, I need to just remind you and remind me about how unlikable she is as just a human being. Please prepare yourselves because honestly, I wasn't ready for what I ended up finding. Here we go.
You mean to tell me this is what I look like with no lash extensions, no makeup, and I'm single? You could literally roll over the next morning. Of course, I will have a bonnet on, but you could roll over and you could look at me and be like, oh my God, that's my queen. Me! But I'm single. What is wrong with y'all?
I hate that I have to be the one to break this to you, but it's probably definitely the personality and maybe a little bit of like the credit card theft that you've openly admitted to. I am actually uncomfortable with the fact that she calls me bestie in most of her videos. I cannot imagine being friends or living with this person. Like, that's gonna be a no from me. Speaking of theft, let's take a look at this one because it launched me into a completely different part of TikTok that I was not prepared for. So we see screenshots of her bank account where she's showing us that she's been Zelled or done cash deposits of like $1,900, $600, $250, $350, and then she's saying May was fun. As I was watching this, my immediate reaction was, okay, showing your bank account information and like how much you're depositing, it's just pretty darn tasteless. But like, what is the purpose of this exercise? Like, that's what I needed to know. So I did what I do and I read her captions, which is where I noticed she had hashtagged "In Shira We Trust" and "Sprinkle Sprinkle." Do you know who Shira is? Like, what did I just discover? Like, this woman is, her whole platform on TikTok is openly telling other women how to take money from men.
It's also how you ask. You don't ask like, can I have some money? You have to present the situation, act like you're a little sad, and see if they come up with the solution, which is, oh, well, I will help you. There it is. I will give you money. Don't, and like I said yesterday, don't change your level of sadness until you have the money. And as soon as he says, I will give you the money, don't say, okay, like an idiot. Say, okay, oh my God, thank you so much. We can go to the ATM right after because it's a really bad situation and I don't want to have any late fees, or I really need this done. Thank you so much. So, we can go straight unless you have the cash. That would be so, oh my God, you're my hero. So now he can't get out of it. See, you don't wait and be polite. You say, okay, well, let's go make arrangements right now, right now. There's a gas station across the street. After we finish dinner, we can head over there to that ATM.
So now we know that not only does she have a toxic personality, but she's openly taking advantage of multiple men every month, in addition to the credit card fraud she's told us about before. Sounding more and more like a winner, if you ask me. And also, what in the toxic femininity? Someone please save me. Alright, that is all I have for you guys today. At this point, I'm curious to know, have any of you been keeping up with AntiDietPilot? Had you seen any of this content prior to today's video? How are you feeling now that you have seen it? And did you know about this Shira person? Like, my brain is just absolutely exploding into a million pieces right now, because I truly don't know what I just watched. So please, if you know her, if you've heard of her before, you're going to have to let me know in the comment section, because inquiring minds need to know how long this person has been around, which is probably what I'm going to deep dive into before I edit this video, because procrastination is my middle name. Anyway, you guys let me know in the comment section below, and for all my introvert friends out there who do not feel comfortable leaving your opinions in an internet comment section, I see you, I feel you, I am you. Please go ahead and leave me a money emoji this week, because I just cannot get over this last thing that we just watched together. And honestly, I love seeing your emojis just as much as I love reading the opinions and thoughts in the comments, so please, please, please leave them there for me. As always, thank you all so, so much for being here with me this week. I will see you in the next one. Bye!